Today I want to talk about what it means to be part of the MMO community. What is it that makes it feel so special? And why is it that gaming feels so special to me? I think that there's a certain type of gaming that just doesn't really resonate. It's always been that way. I would look at people who played a lot of fast-paced shooters, games like maybe Call of Duty or some random arcade game, and I just didn't care about that. I was never really as much into console games, and what really attracted me was PC gaming. And it's kind of weird because you would look at this and think, well, they're pretty similar, right? PC games, console games, what's the difference? But I guess PC games always were something that felt deeper because the relationship between the player and the game was more like not something that you would kill time with, but it was something that you would treat as a hobby. There was more depth to it. There was more nuanced user interaction in a game that was built around a keyboard and mouse. And to illustrate this and add some context, one of my first favorite games was King's Quest and Space Quest, Police Quest, those old Sierra adventure games, which were made back when 3D wasn't really even a thing in the PC gaming market. So everything was just keyboard and mouse, arrow keys, simple movements, and typing commands to make your character do something like open a door or pick up an item. In any case, eventually, I moved into, I guess, my teenage years, started playing real-time strategy games. I enjoyed games like Star Trek Fleet Command, Empire Earth, city building games. And there were just such good memories there. Good memories of hanging out in chat rooms as a teenager. At that particular time, we had a 56K modem. We had AOL Instant Messenger, MSN Instant Messenger, Yahoo Instant Messenger, and I had a few online friends. We would get together, we'd chat, hang out. That pretty much was my social life. I was homeschooled, and there was this sense of adventure when I or one of my friends would say, "Hey, do you want to play some Empire Earth?" And I'd be like, "Yeah. I'll meet you in the game." And we'd log off of our instant messengers because there were no dual screens. There was just one screen, so you couldn't really be multitasking, chatting in an instant messenger and also be in the game. It just didn't work very well. So we'd log out of our instant messengers and we'd get into the lobby of the multiplayer game and we would play together. There was this camaraderie, there was this sense of friendship and adventure and having something in common. And even if we didn't have any money and we didn't really have a lot of autonomy, we had this sense of freedom on the internet in this unexplored, endless frontier of sorts. And that sense of expansiveness and adventure in gaming would go on to shape so much of my perspective and worldview. And I didn't even really realize this. But the truth of the matter was, I started to have a more broad perspective in life. Even if I didn't see it that way, I played a game about World War II, and I just came to an understanding of what a A-10 Warthog was. A tank, anti-tank strafing plane. I knew what a ME-262 was, an air-to-ground and air-to-air aircraft. I knew what a P-51 was, an air-to-air fighter aircraft. I knew the difference between a Sherman tank and a Tiger tank, because a Tiger tank was, well, tankier. Sherman tank was faster, but it was ultimately weaker. And I knew a lot of little things that all added up to an interest in history, an interest in culture. And I learned these things playing real-time strategy games like Empire Earth. I took an interest in city planning, playing games like SimCity. There were so many things where my perspective on life was enriched by gaming. And there were also many times in my life, which was ultimately a lonely life, where it felt less lonely because of the role technology played to give me an opportunity to, in some ways, connect with other people. Now, I'm not bringing this up to just go off on a nostalgia tangent. I bring it up because, when I made this channel, I didn't try to make it target any specific demographic. Not at all. I just wanted to make a channel that gave me a chance to talk about stuff that I think is interesting and share it with other people. Potentially other people who, like me, have this sense that gaming is an important part of our lives. And I guess deep down inside, I have this feeling that there's two different kinds of gamer. There's gamers who are just trying to kill time, maybe like that classic console gamer. And then there's people who view gaming as sort of a life philosophy, a worldview. And perhaps there is no place where that is more true than a place like the MMO community. And when you look at the MMO community, you'll find there's a lot of different types of, I guess, sub-genre within the MMO club. There's PvPers, there's PvEers, there's hardcore full loot PvP, there's theme parks, there's people who love games like Star Wars The Old Republic or Lord of the Rings Online or Star Trek Online, that really just treat the game as a way to network with other people who love a franchise that's important to them. There's so many different kinds of people you'll encounter in the MMO space. And each game attracts a slightly different type of person. But overall, the average MMO player is really kind of a certain sort of person. A lot of us are guys. That's just the truth. And contrary to the reputation that most gamers are teenagers who just don't have a life, I would say that either a majority or a very large percentage of us are actually middle-aged men. Not the stereotypical teenage crowd, though certainly there are plenty of them too. And I guess I bring that up just because there's something important about having a medium that brings people together. There's something deeply meaningful about going on a journey that isn't just a temporary diversion, but it's something that dramatically shapes the way you see the world. And that's really what this channel aims to be all about. Gaming as something more than just a game. And we're all part of that whole community. We're part of that vibe. We're part of something that started off as just a form of entertainment, but somehow we knew it was something more than just a game. Fast forward a number of years, and, you know, I remember those fond memories I was talking about when I was playing games as a teenager. And then what happened? You know, I guess I grew up. And I did different stuff. I got different jobs. I stopped thinking about gaming, really. And then there was a lot of times in my life when the truth is life just wasn't going very well. And it's true today as well. You know, life is good. It's very good in some ways, and yet life is also not perfect. Life is filled with these slings and arrows, these things which hit you, blindside you, and make you have perhaps a certain trepidation as you face life's journey. But what I found was that there was a point in time when life got hard, and I was looking for a place to escape. I didn't even know that I was looking for a place to escape, other than it occurred to me that maybe I wanted to pull out my laptop and play a game on it. And then I started to have this feeling that I needed to keep on playing games, and I wanted to start getting into MMOs. And I spent so much time over the last probably 4 years or so just thinking about MMOs, thinking about, you know, what is the best one? Why would I want to play one, or maybe play a different one, or maybe play two at the same time? And there was always these thoughts in my mind of, you know, what is the deal with this particular game that I'm interested in right now? Thinking about it, just kind of imagining what my thoughts about the game were. You know, I got interested in it. And as I look back on this, what I realize is life changed around me. But I had something that gave me an ecosystem I could safely interact with. So maybe there were many aspects of my life that felt beyond my control. Maybe there were a lot of things I couldn't do anything about. But I could spend my time thinking about the pros and cons of a couple different MMOs. I could think about the difference between the world of Albion Online and the world of World of Warcraft. Which one's better? Which one do I want to play? Which one has a better character creator? Which one has better lore? Which one has a better community? And there's all these questions and YouTube videos and starting to watch content creators that talk about these things. And as a result of all of that, I realized that it helped me get through a lot of things in life that were difficult moments. It helped me feel grounded when I probably otherwise wouldn't have felt grounded. And I think that probably resonates a lot because regardless of your age or your background, a lot of us got into gaming in some fashion because it was an escape from something in life that wasn't quite the way it should be. But the interesting and profound thing is not just that we got into games because it was an escape. It was a way to distract ourselves from something that wasn't good. The truth is, somewhere along the line, a lot of us found something that we took with us beyond the game. And instead of it just being an empty escape, it turned into something which was a foundation for building a better version of ourselves. Maybe some of us stopped playing games and we went on with our lives and we did different things. Because sometimes a season in your life, it goes on for so long and then you move on past that season and you aren't doing the things that you were doing before anymore, and that's okay. But when you know what it means to be a gamer, you never leave. Not really. Maybe you take a long break, but you never leave. That's just the truth. You know, I was sitting there at work, sitting there at the desk. I'm talking to another member of the corporate market team for Walmart, health and wellness director. He makes pretty good money. He's a very credentialed, educated guy. He's he's not the kind of a person you would look at by any means and ever say, oh, well, here we have a gamer. That's not really the vibe you get from him. But we were talking about games, and it comes up because everyone knows that I play them. And then there's this moment. There's this moment when, his eyes light up. And just out of the blue, suddenly he's talking about World of Warcraft and experiences he had when he was playing WoW. And, I just thought about that. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, you have a guy, like, he's not going home and playing games anymore. He's got a busy life. And yet, there's that part of him that'll always remember those experiences. That part of his imagination that was triggered. That sense of being part of some fantasy world that felt meaningful at the time. And I was listening to the song, which is the theme song of League of Legends, called Legends Never Die. And the lyrics are just that. Legends never die. They become a part of you. And I thought about how when I was a teenager, when the internet was slow and gaming was mostly relegated to young nerds, I would have never imagined that there'd be a time in 2017 when you'd be able to fill an entire stadium with people who would watch a game be played as an esport on the computer. and treat it the same way as people would treat a legacy sports game, like football or baseball. And that's really crazy. Now, I'm not into the esports scene, but my goodness, you see that and it just sends chills down your spine. There's something about it that just resonates, and in a way you can't really find words for, because it feels like there's some kind of a community that we're part of, even if we play different types of games, even if we have different life perspectives, even if our paths have taken us in dramatically different directions. Whether you're 16 or 60, there's something that we all share as gamers, especially as PC gamers, and more especially as MMORPG players, if that's what you are. And I think a lot of you are, because that's usually the kind of game that I tend to play while I'm making these videos. Maybe on the surface there's something to be said for the fact that we should all be there for each other. That we should try to be supportive of each other regardless of where we find ourselves in life's adventure. Because I think there's an unspoken code, a code of equality, a code of fraternity. And there's so many of us who know what it's like to feel alone. Alone because some aspect of life is just not going very well. Maybe you're struggling financially and you don't know how the future is going to work out, but you can still log into a game because at least you're able to afford that small luxury. Or maybe you're in a abusive, toxic, or just unfruitful relationship and you feel alone even though you're not alone. And yet you can log into a game and for a period of time you can be in a place where you don't feel like you're surrounded by the problems of real life's often chaotic reality. Maybe you figured out your life a long time ago, but there's something about those old memories from before that you always come back to, just because sometimes things that are fiction and fantasy, things that stir our imagination, are more real to us than all the things that the world says we should prioritize and treat as being of paramount importance. But no matter who we are or why we may feel alone, we're really not. We're not alone because I don't know who you are, but I know that you're not the only person that feels the way you do about life. Sometimes I feel alone, but I also know that there's this huge army of people, kind of a guild of sorts. There's all these people who share this feeling that life is somehow more broken than society wants to admit, and also more beautiful than the world wants to recognize. The world is a broken place, filled with people who put on facades and tell lies to themselves and others. And yet it's also such an incredibly beautiful adventure, an opportunity to kindle this fire of awe and imagination. And I think us as gamers, we experienced that in some way. And I'll tell you, I feel like I'm blessed to be in a place in my life today, being 36 years old. I found myself single again. I found myself with a lot of financial problems gone. Really just with time to be at peace with myself, time to know myself, and time to play games. And I'll tell you today, I don't have a stressful life. I don't have a busy life. I go to work, I come home, I like to spend time outside, try to get some exercise. And when I'm not outside looking at the fall trees or looking at the stars at night, I'm probably sitting at the computer watching YouTube videos, making YouTube videos, or just hanging out trying to figure out what game I'm going to play on the computer. And it's interesting, though, because I was so busy for so long. I was busy for the first decade of my adult life. Decade and a half of my adult life. And there were good experiences in there, 100%. I hope to tell all of you more about all those experiences in future videos, because I'm pretty sure that even when you feel like your life is kind of boring and there's not a lot to tell, we all do have stories to tell. We all have things, if we're honest and we really shared them in their true way, that could make somebody's life more rich just for sharing those stories. And I want to share those stories. But I also think it's been really cool, and it's been a privilege to be able to kind of get into the rat race and chase all of these things, relationships, careers, and then be in a place where I could upgrade my computer, get the newest hardware, buy a bunch of games in the Steam store, dabble in just about every MMORPG on the market, and get a feel for all of the things that changed in the gaming industry while I was busy living my real life outside the game. And then to get back into it through the lens of that perspective, as somebody who used to love gaming and then moved away from it and then came back. And then to see some of the responses that I've gotten from some of you, and a lot of the responses that I see in the videos of other gaming channel creators. So many people who have this shared journey, a shared experience, a shared passion for something we can't quite put our finger on. You know, I made a video just a couple days ago, and I was talking about screen refresh rates, and I thought, crazy thing is, it actually got a lot more attention than I would have expected. And one of you wrote like 3 or 4 paragraphs about screen refresh rates. And, you know, what a nerdy thing. I mean, who cares, right? But here we are. Probably a lot of us middle-aged guys or even older who were the first generation in history to be raised on and perhaps even by the internet. The first generation to be able to know what it's like to experience an MMORPG. I think that we're more pragmatic. I think we're more inclusive. And I think, oddly, we're in some ways more wise, because while we've been playing all of these games that seem like they're in some ways pointless and just purely for fun, we've also learned to expose ourselves to so many different elements of history, culture, politics, faith, religion, all of this stuff, and to see good in all of it and to take something meaningful away from it. I think gaming is such an important and valuable part of culture in our society and in the world. Maybe now more than ever before. We live in a time when geopolitical tensions are high in many parts of the world, there's so much at stake. There's always that risk that humanity might perhaps fail. And if it ever does, then what a privilege it's been to be able to be part of a generation that could imagine the world the way we as gamers have been privy to do. Or maybe the world will always be on a sort of an upward trajectory, and our adventure as a human race is just beginning. And if that's the case, it's an amazing experience being able to have an armchair view of essentially the ground floor of one of the greatest ages in human history in its infancy. But to get back to the present, I think it's amazing to know that even if sometimes we feel alone in life, we have each other. Even if we don't talk to each other, even if we don't know each other really, we're not alone. And it's so important to remember that, because sometimes you can get lost in a bubble. And you think that you're facing the world alone. You think that your quest you're on is somehow something no one else has to face. But that's not true. Even if you feel like you're alone, there's a lot of other people out there that are probably sitting behind screens very similar to your own. And they are also playing maybe on a different server, but they're playing out the same adventure. So just know you're not alone. And, you know, finally, I talked a little bit about how we're not all just teenagers anymore, because we grew up. As we talk about age and we talk about this sort of an existential challenge that we have to come to terms with the fact that we are moving through different seasons of our lives. A couple final things in closing that I would have to say. You know, first of all, if you are a very young gamer out there, if you're 16 years old and you're enjoying a game and you're getting into the community, I would say don't ever let somebody tell you that gaming is going to ruin your life, because I'll tell you from the perspective of somebody who has been told that now quite a few years ago, well, I'll tell you gaming won't ruin your life. There's a lot of things that will ruin your life. The biggest one is letting other people tell you how to live your life. So don't ever let somebody disparage your youth. And I'll tell you, you know, I like to collect things, collectibles, and get different stuff I think is cool. And I look around at these things and I think about, you know, what am I going to do one day when I'm old and I don't have any more time to play the game of life? Then what would I want to do? Well, I guess I'd want to find some young gamer who likes all the stuff that I spent my life liking, you know, and give all that stuff to them. That's what I'd want to do. Because the final point I'm getting to is legends never die. As somebody once said, they just respawn. See, we think our lives are going to be lived for a time and then we will die and then our lives will be over. And the adventure will be over. But that's not really true. The truth is that you die, and in some way, the essence of your life is absorbed back into the server that you were spawned into, and you are in some fashion reborn. From the dust we came, to the dust we will return. And then there will be new life which springs up. There will be new players joining the game. There will be new people experiencing the adventures that we will never have. And that is one of the best parts of the game of life that we really have. It's the best feature of the game. The fact that even though our game doesn't go forever, the game always will find a way to go on. We might log off for the last time sometime, but the servers are still going to be online. So with that perspective, we should be so proud and happy for the opportunity to build up and to celebrate the people who will go on when we aren't going on anymore. To have a sense of being a good team player in the game of life. To celebrate everyone's journey. I think that's such an important lesson to learn. It's important because it helps other people when we're the right kind of a person. And it's also important for us because as we go through the different seasons of our lives, as we come to terms with the fact that our time is not permanent to be on this earth, we can have a sense of faith through it all. To know that even if life has its slings and arrows, it has its challenges, it has its fairy tales that don't have happy endings, there's going to be a lot of happy endings in the future, even if they're not ours. You know, there's a Bible verse, Bible story rather, where the children of Israel, the Jews, are traveling around after they were slaves in Egypt, and then they escaped Egypt, and they went on this pilgrimage to the promised land, and Moses was leading them. And eventually they got there. They went into this land overflowing with milk and honey. And as the story goes, Moses did not go into the promised land. Moses was led up onto this tall hill by God. And the final gift of Moses' life was that he got to look up over this cliff down into the promised land, and he got to see his followers go into that promised land. And it wasn't his to go in there. He didn't go any further because, you know what? He finished his quest. The rest of the quest line belonged to somebody else. He didn't have to play it all the way to the end. He got as far as he needed to go, and then somebody else got to enjoy what he had done. They honored him. He honored them with his service. And then he rested at the end of his life on a mountaintop. And, you know, the truth is, some of the sweetest, maybe bittersweet, but still some of the sweetest experiences in life are when we plant trees when they are young, and we accept the fact that we will never rest under their shade. But those who go on after us will. So, if you are in the middle of your journey feeling fatigued, know that you are not questing alone. You might be questing solo, but you are not playing a dead game. If you are at the beginning of your journey, know that there is a great cloud of witnesses that are rooting for you. And if you are feeling like you're toward the end of your journey, know that there is no such thing as a journey that is in vain. And no matter what station you find yourself in, know that you are part of a community of people who have a lot in common. But I do think there is one thing that has never changed, and it probably never will change, and that is the fact that gamers are basement dwellers. And if maybe we don't all live in the basement, but if we don't live in the basement, we want to live in the basement. And the truth of the matter is, gamers are, by nature, just a bit antisocial. Antisocial in the sense that they tend to withdraw in themselves. And for that sort of people, maybe it's hard not to feel alone, because sometimes we like to do things that self-isolate us. And I thought I was going to be done, but I guess maybe I will make one more point, probably just because it's a good thing to talk about, and that is, if you are inclined to isolate yourself, be a little bit careful about that, because sometimes you can isolate yourself, and then you can say that you're the victim because you're too lonely. And, well, it's not terrible to touch grass once in a while. And it's not terrible to make a little bit of time for real life people. And that does not mean that you can't still make time for getting lost in a fantasy world too. But balance is an important thing in life, and I guess I have one more point to make. Last one. If you're looking for quality relationships in your life, don't settle for any relationships that are going to come along and tell you that you have to stop being yourself so that you can serve somebody else's agenda. Don't compromise on that. Because there are a lot of relationships where women will say, you know, they want their attention, right? They want to shove you in the closet, and then after a while, if you're not careful, you might feel like Harry Potter living under the stairs. And what I'll tell you is, a healthy, respectful relationship will respect the things you enjoy in life. That does not mean that you do not make sacrifices to a point. Doesn't mean that you don't serve others. Doesn't mean that you have a free pass to be a narcissistic a-hole that's just ignorant and oblivious to the needs and feelings of others. But if you feel like you have to give up all of your hobbies because your spouse, your significant other is going to tell you it's stupid, and why are you doing that? Well, somebody once said there's an awful lot of women out there that'll say that guys playing games is a turnoff, but them watching Grey's Anatomy all day is not. So don't let somebody come along and try to act like you should give up your sense of self for the sake of their interests. And I think that that's important, because life is too short not to stop and smell the roses. Or maybe, as in the case of gamers, to carve out a little bit of time in life's busyness to log in and do a few dailies or a quest here and there. As always, wherever you find yourself, very best wishes on your adventure. Thank you for watching. Till next time. Have a great time.